Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. I've put together about 12 examples of testimony from the progressive left, the real bureaucrats that really run this country. It's not run by senators or Congress members or the president even. It's run by bureaucrats in the West Wing, bureaucrats at every government agency. That's what really, truly runs this country. Some people call it the deep state. I call it something else, and I can't really say because you need about 50 seconds into the video to tell the truth. Now, I'm going to show you, like I said, a dozen. I hope you watch them all. And every time you see one, pause the video and think about what that person said or refused to say. Let's look.
My national objectives.
No, it's not.
We had to implement it. People can self-identify. There is no personal.
Why do you want to know what a small businesswoman, let's say in a town of 20,000 people, going to her local bank to borrow money? Why do you want to know what her sexual preference?
And that's the point. I used to have a small business. I sold it in March of 21. Now, if I went in for a loan at my local bank, and on the bottom it said, straight, bi, non-binary, all the list. Why is that on there? Why is that on there? Because they're going to have preference loans to small business if you're LGBTQT plus. That's outrageous. And even if that was true, it's none of your damn business. This is insane. They want to know every little thing about your personal life. This is about a simple loan, probably backed by the government, a business loan, Small Business Administration loan, and they're like FHA with houses. They're backed by the federal government if the loan goes bad. So the banks love these, but they're going to pick and choose which ones they're going to do, and you're going to see what he says. What happens if you don't put anything down?
Is. What business is that of yours?
We sought to implement what the congressional
What business
requirements
is that of
are.
yours? What a small businesswoman does in her bedroom? Who
Again,
appointed you Pope?
again, people are able to self-identify if they wish.
You're making.
Why? People are able to self-identify. Why? Who gives a shit if you're any type of sexual preference? Who cares? It has nothing to do with the business loan. And this is where the cancer and the rot goes in the bureaucracies. And this guy's sitting here defending it. Well, you can put nothing down. Yeah, and you probably won't get the loan. Because some bureaucrat somewhere in D.C. says, well, they didn't put down anything. They must be against LGBTQ rights. Screw them. And that's exactly what happens.
Them.
We are not making.
Yes, you are.
No, we're not.
And if
it's
they
very
don't
true.
answer, the bank has got to tell you. And we have no idea how you're gonna use this information.
Well, I'm
Yeah. This woman here said some very, very discouraging things concerning Brett Kavanaugh when he was being confirmed in the Senate. You remember that fiasco? No witnesses, no evidence, nothing. Sounds very similar to the Trump civil suit that the woman got, what was it, $83 million? It was $5 originally, I think. And then Trump said, this is a disgrace, and badmouthed her. And then she turned around and sued for defamation and got $83 million with zero witnesses and zero evidence. This is the rot, the cancer that is now infiltrating all levels of government, whether it be local, county, state, and federal. This is the rot that's going into government, bureaucracy at every level. And I was a councilman in upstate New York for 8 years, I know. And I'm telling you, with the city council we have now, all Democrats, well, there's one Republican, but the Democrats picked them. It's going to continue to erode the system. And that's exactly what they want.
absolutely respect the authority of every Supreme Court justice and all of its precedents without reservation.
See, I don't believe you. I think you allowed your political beliefs to cloud your judgment. And I think you said a few years ago what you said about Brett Kavanaugh, and I think you believe it. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like to be a litigant in front of you.
And at the same time, these are the same people who say, we respect the Supreme Court, but we want to expand it to 13 seats, 15 seats, so we can appoint progressive Democrats. But we respect the institution. That's the one mistake the founders didn't do. They didn't put a precise amount of individuals that sit on the Supreme Court.
With that demonstration of lack of judicial temperament and judgment, how can a litigant possibly think that you're not going to act on personal beliefs if you were so intemperate to say something like this? Last question. Are you proud of the fact that Yale Law School has a quota system limiting the number of Asian Americans? Have you ever written a letter?
No, you're going to love this one. This is about the fact that the DOJ, the FBI, is sending in infiltrators into churches to spy on clergy members, probably anti-abortion rallies and parades they have, and other things like things that are going on in schools. I won't go into detail because this website won't allow it. They're killing this channel enough. I don't want to make it worse. And parents are pissed off. So they're infiltrating all these organizations, many of them religious. And listen to this genius who won't answer a question. Why aren't they held in contempt? If they don't, they're under oath. If you don't answer a question, you don't have to answer it to my satisfaction. In other words, I don't agree with what your opinion is, but when you ask a direct question, you won't answer it. That's got to be contempt of Congress, minimum.
It's not appropriate for you to comment on whether or not the federal government of the United States should be infiltrating religious entities and organizations and trying to recruit informants and sources in the clergy. You don't have an opinion on that? You want a lifetime federal appointment to the judiciary to conduct impartial justice, but you can't say that this is inappropriate? You know, let me give you a refresher course. The Attorney General of the United States sat right where you were sitting, and he couldn't run away fast enough from this. He said it was a gross abuse of department authority. He claimed that it had never happened. He was not telling the truth, it turns out.
Well, he was not telling the truth under oath. Then why isn't he charged? And on top of this judicial nominee, it's a lifetime appointment. I don't give a shit what you think. You're a Republican. The Democrats control the Senate. Under the Constitution, the Senate approves appointments of judges. I don't care what you have to say. So I'm just going to bullshit my way through all the Republican questions, and I'm going to take all the great softball questions from the Democrats, and I'm going to get this seat anyway, whether you like it or not.
But he said that if it was happening, he put a stop to it immediately, because it was grossly inconsistent with the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Can you say that?
Senator, that wasn't that memo and the conduct that it relates to wasn't anything that I would have discussed.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you.
This Mayorkas.
Now, here we go. Matt Gaetz. He's a firebrand to be sure. I agree with him probably 90% of the time. Listen to what he says concerning our head of Department of Homeland Security, basically in charge of our borders, especially the southern border.
Doctrine where so long as you don't commit a crime, you get to stay here and burden our hospitals, burden our schools, burden our social services, burden our jails. You've sent the message to the cartels, and then you've taken this app and you've digitized illegal immigration and you've scaled it to the moon. Like this app that you've got everybody downloading is like the Disney Fast Pass into the country, never to be subject to actual removal, just removal proceedings as you call them. That app doesn't do any search of their criminal history in their home country, does it?
Now, ask yourself, why do they want all these millions of aliens, illegal and otherwise, in this country all at the same time under their watch, especially now in the 4th year of the Biden presidency. This is no great conspiracy theory, John. You're a right-wing lunatic and, making all the frogs gay and all that kind of stupidity. Why are they allowing millions? Is it just the cheap labor? I doubt it. I doubt it very much. Ask yourself, especially the baby boomer Democrats, of one I used to be as an elected official here locally in 2000, 2007. I was the council president in 2006 here in upstate New York as a Democrat, and I was going to leave the party then. But they talked me out of it. I left it over a decade ago anyway, after I was out of office, so I wouldn't have to listen to the bullshit. The Democrats left me a long time ago. Ask yourself, why are they allowing so many people into this country all at once? It's about voting, folks. Let's just tell the truth.
Congressman, I disagree with everything you have said.
Well, I'm sure, but just to answer the question, does the app that you are out there promoting do any search of people's criminal history in their home country?
Congressman, Customs and Border Protection screens and vets individuals whom they encounter.
Your
thoroughly.
app, it either has the functionality to test their criminal history in their home country or it doesn't. By the way, if it did, you'd have already told me. It doesn't. And then the other epic failure of this that's empowered the cartels is that in these processing centers you've set up in other countries.
You don't have anybody at
Now, think about this for a minute. I'm with a bunch of people. I paid, probably saved for years, my life savings to give to a cartel member, a coyote, to show me how to cross the border. I do illegally. And then what I do is I know, because the NGOs in the Biden administration and the new Democrats, if you turn yourself in, we're going to give you a hearing, an expulsion hearing. Well, they never get expelled, and they know this. So rather than go in the shadows, they just go to a local police station or an immigration office, not through a port of entry, mind you, because now they're already in the country, which was their goal, and especially ones that are having children here where they have birthright citizenship. They can just turn themselves in and get a hearing 5, 6, 7, 8 years in advance, and they're going to say, well, the reason why it's so long is because we don't have enough money to process everybody. It's just a formality. It would be like I robbed a gas station, and they knew it was me, and they're looking for me. So I turn myself in. They say, okay, John, nope, not a problem. No bail. You've already broken the law crossing the border illegally, but we'll let that go. We're going to give you a case for your armed robbery about 7 or 8 years in advance. But wink, wink, nod, nod. Don't worry about it. By then, people will just forget it, and they'll probably just get probation and move on. Who wouldn't do it? Who wouldn't do it? Now, listen to this lady. She runs the federal prisons for the entire United States. He's asking her how many people they've let out under the new criteria of the Biden administration and how many of those people reoffended. You're not going to believe the answer.
the bureau that can count.
I do not have that number in front of me.
So let me get this straight. The First Step Act was passed in 2018. This is 2024. Am I right so far?
That's correct.
That's 6 years. And in 6 years, you've let 30,000 criminals go.
Now, the First Step Act was done under the Trump administration. That's true. But they're supposed to vet people when they let them go. Nonviolent offenders. There's a ton of nonviolent drug offenders that got a lot of time for the 1990s law pushed by Joe Biden as senator. Trump was just trying, and the Republicans are trying to get some justice for these people. You shouldn't get 20 years in jail for a nonviolent offense. So, do you vet these people when you let them go? Listen to her answer.
Right?
That's correct.
And you don't have the slightest idea how many of them committed another crime and came back.
I don't have that number in front of me. to
And you
answer.
run the Bureau of Prisons.
That's correct.
And how many employees do you have?
About 40,000 employees.
Oh, my God. Great.
Yeah, 40,000 people, and she's going before a Senate committee. Anybody with 3 brain cells touching is going to, they're going to ask of the First Step Act, of the 30,000 have been let out, how many reoffended? That might even be question number 1. I even know that. I'm not a head of the prisons of the federal government. It's amazing to me how ignorant these people are, and they're ignorant on purpose. It's not because they're stupid. They just don't give a shit.
A, B, C, D, F, would you give President Biden's administration on combating illegal immigration?
I don't know what grade I would put it. I think they've made some useful improvements, but I think that the border there's so much money going to the border that I think the border is mostly secure. People are mostly turning themselves in. They're not really crossing the border.
Yeah, they're not really crossing the border. Well, how the hell do you turn yourself in unless you cross the border illegally? These people have a twisted and warped sense of what the future of this country will be. They're not crossing the border illegally. They're turning themselves in. Just like I didn't rob the gas station because I turned myself into local police. These people are nuts. But it's the bureaucrats, not the elected officials, that are really making the policy. Make no mistake. If you vote Democrat for Congress, the U.S. Senate, or the presidency, is going to get 50 times worse.
You can't give a grade? You're an expert on immigration, and you can't give a grade?
Oh, I guess if I had to, I'd probably be about a C, right in the middle somewhere.
A C or a D?
A C, because they kept some Trump policies in place. They've made some improvements. They're
Right.
sort of in between.
Okay, how about you, Mr. Sakura?
Are we grading on a curve, Senator?
No, sir.
Are we grading on a curve? That's a curve in a class. In other words, say you get a C- on a test, but you're the best in the class, you get an A because it's a curve. And that's why they're chuckling.
Question, why you would sic the National Security Division of the Department of Justice on parents?
This is about the FBI and the intelligence services going after parents at school board meetings. And this trans issue has lit a fire under them, and rightfully so. People that scream and holler, in fact, some people here locally in upstate New York said, John, meaning me, why don't you run for the school board? Oh my gosh, it would be, you would make them insane. They would pull their hair out. And it's a citywide race, and I'm getting a little bit older. I'll be 68 this November. But I'm thinking about it just to make them crazy. Because now you're sicking intelligence services, the DOJ, the FBI, are going after parents because they're voicing their opposition of how their local, mind you, school boards are run.
John Cornyn asked you the same thing. You said it wasn't in your October 4th memorandum, it was in another office's memorandum. It was another office's memorandum, Judge. It was in a press release from your office, right here in front of me, October 4th, 2021, for immediate release. You're going to create a task force that includes the National Security Division. What on...
The National Security Division to go after parents because the National School Board Association, which is very tied into the Teachers Association, which really controls the Democrat Party in a lot of ways, called these parents terrorists. And the FBI basically responded with, yes, they are, and this is what we're going to do.
Earth does the National Security Division have to do with parents who are expressing disagreements at school boards?
Nothing in this memorandum or any memorandum is about parents expressing disagreements with their school boards. The memorandum makes clear that parents are entitled and protected by the First Amendment to have vigorous debates.
You lie. That's an outright lie. You don't have to have a memorandum to tell your people to go after parents at school boards. Just like you don't need a memorandum to say we're going to protect the Biden administration, the Biden family, and do everything we can to destroy Donald Trump. There's no memo. It's already well known. This is the Merrick Garland, by the way, that was put up for the Supreme Court, and he shouldn't have been because it was on the end of Obama's term. And when he didn't get his confirmation hearing, this is his revenge.
We don't, the Justice Department is not interested in that question at all. It is
Okay, so even in that case, what is the National Security Division, Judge? These are the people that are supposed to be chasing jihadists and Chinese.
Because they think that conservative parents, everyday, normal, common sense parents, are terrorists. Now, this gentleman here used to be head of Border Patrol. And he is a big pain in the ass to the Democrats, and rightfully so. He's the one who made AOC look foolish. Of course, that's a pretty low bar. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Right thing to say. But I was angry. Let me tell you why you're angry. Because you or no one else in this room has seen what I've seen in my 34 years. You didn't stand in the back of the tractor trailer showing my 19 dead aliens that suffocated to death because the smuggler didn't care, including a 5-year-old boy. What do you think his last 30 minutes were like? I was there. I seen it, I smelled it, I saw it, and I had a 5-year-old boy at the time, and it changed me for the rest of my life. I've seen people who couldn't pay their smuggling fees get stabbed in the face 22 times. 31% of the women are being raped crossing this border. Children are dying. Cartels are getting rich. Why am I angry? Because you haven't done anything to fix it. Nothing. We've been up here for 2 years trying to close the 3 loopholes that Collins said needs to be closed. And you haven't taken one action. But if there's a policy or initiative that's going to cause an illegal alien to be arrested or be detained or be removed, we're going to have a hearing within days.
Isn't that interesting? You can wander around the country, get a fake Social Security number, even a real one if you have a work permit. But if we say there's going to be a hearing for deportation or a criminal act, it's amazing. All of a sudden, all the bureaucratic administration opens up and say, yeah, we have an opening now. You don't have to wait 5 or 6 years. If they're going to throw you out, we better circle the wagons and make sure they don't.
Within days. But I'm still waiting on a hearing on sanctuary cities because these people's lives have been changed forever.
Now, you're going to love this guy.
This sounds like you're not going to answer me. Is this going to be a I'm not going to answer you type deal?
Senator, I'm bound to follow the Code of Judicial Conduct.
The Code of Judicial Conduct doesn't have any bearing on this question whatsoever. What possible bearing could it have? That's a question mark.
Well, Senator, as the Code of Judicial Conduct requires integrity.
Yeah, see him looking away? He's going into his memory for the canned answer. You don't have to be a body language expert to see that. He's looking down and he's thinking in his mind, what's the canned answer? I don't have my 3x5 card in front of me, so this is the canned answer I'm going to use. Appointment for a lifetime judicial spot.
And independence in the judiciary. It requires judicial officers to act with.
It's not a get out of jail free card when you don't want to answer questions when you're under oath before a committee who's considering you for a lifetime appointment to the federal bench.
See, they do that because they can say, I didn't lie. You can't get me for perjury. I swore under oath. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you the truth.
I'm going to try one last time. Did you participate in any meetings during your time as Deputy Chief of Staff or Acting Chief of Staff related to the Hunter Biden laptop, yes or no?
Senator, again, I'm not permitted to answer.
I'm not permitted to answer. And who decides if you're permitted to answer? You're not permitted to answer because the answer is yes. And you don't want to say under oath. So you say, I'm not permitted to answer. Well, tell me what law, what piece of legislation bars you from answering that question? And the answer is none. None. Why aren't these people brought up on lying under oath? Contempt of Congress, contempt of the Senate. Why, oh, why, oh, why? So the reward for you being a acting chief of staff or assistant chief of staff is we're going to get you a judicial appointment for life. That's a nice deal.
Oh, you are permitted to answer. You don't want to answer because it would be inconvenient for you. And I have to tell you, I find that extremely troubling.
Understand you can't have it both.
Oh, this is the woman here. You're going to love her, the Congress member. You know, I'm not trying to put people down, but they say Congress is supposed to represent the cross-section of the Americans, population in general. This is one that represents the ones that are stupid. She's the one that talked to Matt Taibbi and another journalist concerning Elon Musk and his acquisition of Twitter and some of the things that were involved in the article he wrote. And he would not give up his sources. There was some young lady that also helped him with the investigation of the two journalists, and she turned to him and said, it was like a three-way, right? And everybody in the audience laughed. Now listen to this moron.
Both ways, but let's move on because
no, he can. He's a journalist.
No,
he
can't
because either Musk is the source and he can't talk about it, or Musk is not the source. And if Musk is not the source, then he can discuss.
No one
his
has yielded
conversations with-
Telling someone that an individual is not the source and you're a journalist is the same as giving up your source. Because you can go through all the lists of the 6 or 8 people when you know one of them is the source for this article that they printed. And they can go through and say, no, 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 no. And then the 7th one say, I keep my sources to myself under U.S. law. Then they know who it is. Duh. It's amazing to me. And this woman, by the way, on Jim Jordan's left, is a representative from the Virgin Islands who's the biggest pain in the ass, and that's a high bar for Democrats in the Congress, and she's a non-voting member. What the hell is she even doing there? She can't vote.
Gentlelady's out of order. You don't get
And
to
she's
speak.
out of
The
order
gentlelady
because
is not
he's
recognized. The
interrupted.
gentlelady's not
Chairman,
recognized.
You're not recognizing
my
my
time.
He has not
Chairman,
said that.
I don't.
What he has said is he's not going to
Chairman,
reveal his source, and the
I
fact
did
that
not yield
Democrats
my
are
time
pressuring
to
him
the
to do
chairman
so
or
is
the
such a
We're not.
violation
We're
of
asking
First
him about
Amendment.
his conversations with Musk. gentlelady has not yielded you time.
That's what Democrats do.
You don't
I
get
have
to
not
just talk
yielded
over
time
her.
to anybody. I want to reclaim my time, and I would ask the chairman to give me back some of the time because of the interruption.
Are you
Yeah, we go Matt Gaetz again.
protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI
Well, you want to
This is Director Wray. He is the head of the FBI, who has said under oath dozens of times, I'll call them inaccurate things. This, by the way, he was appointed by President Trump. I really don't think he's a director of the FBI. I think he's just a figurehead. I think there's people below him in the Bureau that are really running the place. And I'm hoping and I'm praying that when all this starts coming apart, the FBI, that the vast majority of the agents, and I know they are good, decent, love the Constitution, want to do their jobs and protect the country. It's the 15, 20, 25% that are really running it. Very much like anything in history. Look at the Soviet Union. The Bolsheviks weren't even 15%, and they took over. Same with China. Same with Venezuela. You can go through the list is endless. You don't have to be in the majority to take over something. And I'm hoping that the real rank and file FBI guys and women finally step up.
Hold on. You won't answer the question about whether or not that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is. And your inability to acknowledge that is deeply revealing about you. But let's go from the uncurious to the downright nosy. How many illegal FISA queries have occurred under your leadership of the FBI?
Now, before you hear the rest of the video, pause this video and think about his question. Guess. Take a guess. How many FISA inquiries, well, by the way, it was the people that lied to the FISA courts that got the permission and the warrant, a secret warrant, mind you, and you can't ask them about it because it's classified. How nice and how convenient to spy on the Trump campaign in 2016. And spy on Trump after he was president, a sitting president. Take a wild guess. Don't start the video. Just pause it and think to yourself, what do you think it's a reasonable amount of the FISA inquiries were illegitimate?
Well, there are reports that have come out with different numbers about compliance incidents.
More than 1 million illegal ones? Because that's what the Inspector General said. The Inspector General said that in the 3.4 million of these queries, more
3.4 million queries. 1 million are illegitimate. How many of the other ones are really illegitimate? They want to spy on American citizens. And you can't get any information because it's a secret court and it's classified. How convenient. And that's the thing they use all the time. I can't tell you the answer to that because it's classified. I can tell you behind closed doors off the record so the public won't find out. How convenient. How convenient. Think about you older people during the Watergate days, and I was a teenager back then. And all the Republicans and all the attorney generals and everybody who was involved in Watergate in the end said, I can't tell you because it's classified. They would have thrown them in jail. In fact, some did go to jail. But for some reason, somehow, you don't have to answer questions.
than 1 million were in error. Do you have any basis to disagree with that assessment by the Inspector General?
I'm not sure actually that's a correct characterization of the Inspector General's findings on that.
The internet will remind you of that in moments.
Yeah, the internet will remind you of that moments.
Start with you. You testified a moment ago to Senator Butler that every child gets a know your.
Now, listen to this. Sometimes when a person is giving testimony and answering questions or trying to evade questions, when they pause, that silence is deafening. Deafening. And listen to what she says at the very end.
Rights presentation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that before or after you release them to labor traffickers?
Dead silence.
Senator, every child that comes into our care gets a Know Your Rights presentation as well as...
Have you read these New York Times reports, these stories, the series of stories the New York Times has done on the children who are in your care? Have you read them?
Yes, I have.
Have you read that children are scrubbing dishes, they are operating heavy machinery, they are delivering meals, they are harvesting coffee, they are working construction, they are working as housekeepers, they are working overnight shifts at plants where they are not paid, they are not going to school, they are not cared for, they are not giving meals, almost all of it illegally. Are you aware of that?
No. He just asked her a straight out question, and I'm surprised she answered it. Listen to her answer.
That's a yes or no.
Yes.
And that's it. That's it. Yes, I do know. But we're going to do it anyway. Because our goal is to destroy the fabric and the foundation of this country. Make zero mistake about it. Zero mistake. She effed up. She told the truth. Yes, I'm aware. What are you doing about it? Nothing. Why would we? We want to flood this country with tens of millions of illegal people and then make them legal. And then guess what happens? Besides giving corporations and big business tons of money because they can employ them for free, basically slave labor or small wages, they want the voters. And those of you black Americans out there, I won't say African Americans, I think that's insulting. You black Americans out there, the Democrat Party has taken for granted for decades. They're throwing you under the bus. They are filling the country with people that will vote for them because they see that black Americans are turning away from the Democrat Party. I hope the Democrat Party crashes and burns, ends up being just a pile of ashes. And then maybe they can rebuild their party again to make it viable. I used to be an old school John Kennedy Democrat. So are you older baby boomers. The Democrat Party that you've been voting for, the pro-union party and all the rest, doesn't exist anymore. I know it's hard for you to say what you believe in, like I did, was incorrect and I was wrong for decades. It's hard to admit that. But frankly, it's true. Can you stand it if you vote for a Republican? There is only one way you can make the Democrat Party change. Take them out of office at the local level the county level, the state level, and the federal level. And then we'll go into the bureaucracy in each state capital, as well as in Washington, D.C. One step at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But you've got to start somewhere. So there you have it. A dozen examples of the new Democrat Party, the real Democrat Party. And those Democrats and elected officials or people you know that say nothing about this, but even don't agree with it, but say nothing, they're just as guilty. They're just as guilty. How many times in history have we seen evil being done and the populace says nothing because they're afraid? Countless times. And every single time it's turned out to be a disaster of untold proportions, especially in the most powerful military and the richest country in the world. Think about it. Your vote is hugely important. Until the next time, God bless, goodbye, and good luck.